until next year when we do a repaving down the entire back. Thanks to his advocacy, the city received $2 million to support phase 1 of this project, improving the corridor between Interstate 880 along Thornton Avenue all the way down into the Old Town neighborhood. These upgrades will enhance safety and movement for drivers, pedestrians, and cyclists alike. Last year, Newark received an additional $1 million in federal funding for phase 2, which will continue that down, as I mentioned, through the Old Town neighborhood. Congressman Khanna has personally visited Thornton Avenue to survey road conditions and pledge to help improve the key route to our city. He called me at the end of that route and said, "I have no flat tires to report." Level of attention means a great deal, and we are grateful for his hands-on commitment in improving Newark's transportation network. Combined with the city's Old Town Streetscape project, these improvements will significantly enhance and revitalize Thornton Avenue, the heart of our community. Congressman Khanna is also a local and vocal supporter of small business. He has held listening sessions here in Newark with neighborhood grocery store owners to hear firsthand about rising costs, inflation, and competitive pressures. I want to thank Lupe Lopez. Is Lupe here? Lupe Lopez and the Arteaga family own the Arteaga market. She was instrumental in bringing us Khanna to hear what is a significant issue within our community of grocers. He continues to be a strong advocate for their interests and a champion for a family that helps sustain our community. We also want to express our appreciation for the Congressman's support for the American Rescue Plan. I'm not going into great detail, but we received $11.8 million. And what that did was we were able to give grants to small businesses to keep them operating during some real difficult times. We also had money for a lot of nonprofit organizations that was helpful to them as well. And he also dedicated $1.5 million to affordable housing, probably the most critical issue facing any of the communities in the Bay Area, affordable housing. And Congressman Khanna has been a champion for affordable housing, and we appreciate that. Congressman Khanna represents California's 17th district, stretching from Cupertino to Newark, and is now serving his 5th term. He sits on the House Armed Services Committee, is vice chair of the Progressive Professional Caucus, and serves as ranking member of the Subcommittee on Cyber, Innovative Technologies, and Information Systems. He has worked across the state to advance legislation that strengthens American manufacturing, investments in science and innovation, that supports good paying tech jobs. His work has helped with CHIPS, the Science Act, signed recently by President Joe Biden last term. Congressman Khanna also chairs the House Oversight and Reform Environmental Subcommittee, where he has led hearings addressing aviation-related health risks and the impacts of climate change on food supply and public health. He was born in Philadelphia. Are they playing today? Wow.
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night. All right. Yeah, and that's why we have an overwhelming audience today, because the Niners have a bye.
Yeah!
Khanna holds a BA in economics from the University of Chicago and a law degree from Yale University.
Wow.
He is a proud resident of a city nearby Newark, where he lives with his wife and 2 children. In his free time, he enjoys cheering for the Golden State Warriors, watching movies, and traveling. So
That's
please
really funny.
join me with an overwhelming appreciation for
Yay!
I like coming to Newark just to hear Mayor Hannon introduce me. I keep coming back. And what a great turnout. Thank you for taking a Sunday afternoon. You know, the mayor and I have been friends now. One of the things I so appreciate about the mayor's leadership is we share a fundamental belief in civility and dialogue and understanding difference and trying to bridge the divides in our community and in our country. And I just have so appreciated the leadership he's shown, the integrity he's shown, and how he brings people together in this community. Let's give your mayor a round of applause. this area is blessed to have people in public service who are in it for the right reasons, to help improve their communities, you know, to help rebuild roads, to help get funding for schools. It's not caught up in the anger and the division that so often has consumed our national politics. So it's always, I say it's sort of a taking a bath, coming back home to get refreshed about what politics should be about in improving people's lives. I want to save the bulk of the time for your questions, but I did want to talk about a few of the key national issues that I've been involved in. The mayor mentioned the issues of bringing back funding, and we're coming back as soon as we actually get a budget passed. As you know, there has not been a budget passed in the entire last year because the Trump and Republicans don't want to find a budget that actually extends the Affordable Care Act tax credits. And this is basically going to penalize and raise costs for so many Americans in our community and across the country. So we're fighting both to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. We don't have a hike in prices, and ultimately to have Medicare for all, national health insurance in this country, so that we don't have the extraordinary profits of private health insurance at the expense of everyday working Americans. Some of you may have seen I worked with Thomas Massey, where we passed the Epstein transparency bill. I was so moved over the last 5 months talking to these survivors. And one of the women this morning who I met at Ohlone College, she said to me, "Bro, I've never told you this before, but I'm a survivor. And when the United States Congress stood there with survivors and passed your bill, and the Senate passed your bill, and the president signed it, I finally felt, seen, and heard that the national government, that our federal government is finally having a reckoning and standing up against the abuse of people who have been assaulted and raped." Our bill passed, and a federal judge just yesterday has now ordered the release of the files. The judge had previously said that he was not going to order the release, but he cited our bill and our law. And now that Congress has acted, we need to release these files. So it shows that when you build a coalition in the Congress, we are still Article 1. We can cave to Donald Trump. We can actually build a coalition that has Donald Trump. Actually a clear victory over Donald Trump, where people have found his fine. For 70 Republicans were willing to vote for my bill. You know, Thomas Massey had a trick. We called it the Massey Khanna bill. I don't think when the president signed it, he realized he was signing my bill. Massey bill as possible. It was a Democratic bill. We had 70 Republicans willing to stand up and defend the president. Everyone okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
70 Republicans willing to defy the president in voting for this bill. And there's a point where the president said, okay, I'm going to support it. And I believe that this has stiffened the spine now of some Republicans willing to call out the illegal strikes in Venezuela. Willing to call out the tariffs on coffee and food that are simply increasing prices here without bringing any jobs. Willing to call out the ICE raids without due process. Hardship on hardworking, tax-paying people who are playing by the rules, paying taxes. We have an opportunity now to listen not just with Democrats, but from many of the own Trump voters in some of these districts who have been disillusioned, who thought he was going to fight corruption, and it seems that he's become part of corruption, who thought he was going to fight to lower prices and see the prices have gone up, who thought he was going to bring manufacturing jobs back and see that their kids and their families are having a harder time getting good paying jobs, especially with AI. So I believe that the Democrats have an opportunity to build a true economically populist message, standing for working families and the middle class, standing against the corruption of a system that hasn't worked for too many. And I'm going to continue to work. And I'm going to continue to work in being able to do that and build that kind of a coalition. So with that, let me open it up for questions, and I'll hold the mic closer. You think after 75 minutes, I figured it out, but make sure people in the back can hear.
Great. Thank you. Again, I think almost all of you were here when I went through the preliminaries. Over on the right, HIP and Renew. In the middle, we have Nicole and Avanti and Val. And on the left, we have Wahab and Nick. So if you have questions, get their attention and give your name, your city, and the topic, and they'll take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's give a round of applause to our officers and law
Yes.
enforcement. Thank you.
Congressman Khanna, our first question is from Rob Means from Milpitas on the topic of the war with
I have
Venezuela.
a question.
I know, Rob.
Uh-oh.
Regulatory.
You're a Milpitas guy. They let Milpitas folks in.
Now they'll pay a tariff.
So first off, I'd like to thank you for not only this town hall and the town halls you've held in Republican districts where the Republican representatives don't, and on the Tom Hartman program, which is national. What I'm asking about the war in Venezuela that is trying to gin up right now, apparently. Some folks think it might be about oil, like Iraq was. I'm concerned that it might be about something even more impactful to us in that starts a war, then he may be declaring a state of emergency and cancel the elections next year. Is there anything that we, the people, can do to push back on this?
Well, I've been leading with Thomas Massey. You know, Thomas Massey and I became known for the Epstein files, but really our collaboration started by trying to stop these overseas wars. We had led a war powers resolution to stop the war in Iran. Now, we are working together with Congressman McGovern to say that Donald Trump cannot engage in a regime change war in Venezuela without coming to the United States Congress. We need members of Congress across this state and across this country to sponsor that resolution so that we can get a vote in the Congress and make it clear the American people are tired of these overseas regime change wars. We had it in Iraq, we stayed in Afghanistan 20 years, we did it in Libya, we did it in Yemen, and Americans, in my view, around the country, want us to invest in our communities, our schools, our healthcare, our jobs, not I also, as a senior member of the Armed Services Committee, was with Don Bacon, who's a senior Republican from Nebraska. And we did a program together on C-SPAN. We both called for Hexet to come before the Armed Services Committee to explain and to justify what he did. His blaming a admiral is the height of cowardice. You can't shift the blame of killing people who had surrendered to an admiral. That he is reported as saying giving the order to kill them all. We need to hold him accountable. He needs to come before the United States Congress. He needs to come before the committee, and he needs to explain to the American people what the standard is for having these strikes, why he made the order to strike the innocents, and why we're continuing to strike in the Caribbean. What is the standard? They're killing people on all our behalf. We need to have a clear sense that there's some standards. Otherwise, we're giving license to Xi Jinping and Putin to say that the rule, that is not the way America does business. And I'm going to continue to speak out on the Constitution and human rights and international law.
Congressman, I have Bob from Fremont with kind of about China and tech.
Yes. Yes, Bob Fine in Fremont. Congressman Khanna, I am very concerned about the rise of China, both militarily and technologically, in all kinds of technologies. And I'm concerned that as Americans are worried about the Epstein files and Venezuela and Gaza, Ukraine, and all this other stuff, and the divisiveness in this country, that we're being distracted from the rise of China. And what do you have to say about China's rise and how we can thwart that?
Well, Bob, I appreciate it. I don't know how the mayor is allowed a Milpitas resident, a Fremont resident, that's the first two questions. But I appreciate, I was just in China. I'm on the China Select Committee. I went with Adam Smith in a bipartisan group, and we were just in China for 5 days. And you're right, China is taking very seriously the investments in renewable energy, in electric vehicles, and innovation, in AI. 1/3 of the talent in AI is in China. It is so sad to me that Donald Trump is dismantling funding for the National Institute of Health, for the National Science Foundation, for universities, for science. Put aside politics. That is handicapping us from leading the AI. It's the handicapping us from leading the clean energy race. Now, I don't think we should emulate China is we cannot have a view like they have, which is AI full speed ahead. It doesn't matter who gets crushed. I don't believe that America should have innovation at the expense of crushing our own people. We're a democracy. We need guardrails on AI. That means we need to make sure that you can't just build a data center and stick the local community with the electricity bill and the water bill. That means you can't just have AI displace 2 million truck drivers in this country and driving jobs. I'm all for AI innovation to cure cancer, to help improve education, but it has to be with a consistent message of how we're going to create jobs, how we're going to protect workers, how we're going to protect communities, a pro-worker, pro-citizen AI. That's what the United States should lead. We should have an alternative model to China, saying the way we build and lead in innovation is with a working and middle class at the forefront, not in a top-down model where we're indifferent to the suffering of people.
Congressman, I'm here with Laura from Sunnyvale with a question on campaign donations.
Hey, Congressman Khanna, thank you so much for your dedication to these town halls. I think my husband and I have been to most of them.
Thank you for being here.
We have been protesting weekly, once, twice a week, as you've all been saying, we all need to be dedicated and helping to get our country back. And yesterday's protest in front of Tesla, I said that I was going to be coming today. So one of the questions was, as we stand there in front of Musk's company and all the oligarchs and the tech billionaires giving Trump money, they wanted me to ask, do you accept campaign funds, donations from people like Musk and Peter Thiel and all the other oligarchs?
I have not gotten any money from Elon Musk. Peter Thiel, actually, in 2014, did a $2,000 contribution before he was Peter Thiel because we had a common professor at the University of Chicago. But once he supported Trump, I have not accepted any contribution. I've never from Elon Musk. But beyond that, I have not taken a dime of PAC money, of lobbyist money, of super PAC money. I haven't taken any PAC or lobbyist money. And I have a bill with somebody to ban super PAC money in the Congress. And you can give a contribution limit to a member of Congress at $3,500 or $7,000, but then you can go outside and then give a super PAC $10 million. There need to be the same contribution limits on super PACs as they are on individuals. I'll ask this community, because I've gotten into a little bit of hot water. People say, oh, bro, you represent something for a billionaire tax. And I say, I'm representing the view of my constituents. Billionaires numbers have gone up from $3 trillion to $8 trillion. I can tell you, and people in our community and around the country who can't afford healthcare, who can't afford childcare, who think the American dream is dead. I got to tell you, I'm for taxing those billionaires in my district. Stake in the American dream for our family. Now, I don't want to embarrass you, but how many people agree with me that we should have a wealth tax on billionaires in this that's what I tell them. The press doesn't believe me. They say, well, you represent Silicon Valley. You're not representing your constituents. They have not met my constituents. My constituents are not the tech billionaires. My constituents are the people in this room. And I will continue to speak out for the take on the concentration of wealth.
Congressman Khanna. Next question is from Richard Morento from Sunnyvale on HRSA 340B rebate.
Congressman, it's a delight to see you. It's always a pleasure to come to your town halls. This particular legislation was just announced a month ago on October 30th, and what it is a model that changes.
Can't hear the question.
Yeah, turn the mic on.
I can hear him, so I can repeat the question. I can hear you.
Keep talking.
Do we have it now? Oh, okay. Great. Thank you again for being here. I am an advocate for community health centers, and they're very important to people here and across the country. And in October 30th, HRSA government announced a new model for cost for the health centers that for their 340B services, which includes medicine, some of it, that they are going to have the health centers pay essentially the retail, their retail price, and not get any rebate that they normally get until after that product or service is delivered. So they're going to have to finance at a higher rate the services and medicines that they've been distributing. And so they're going to have a crunch on their budgets, a big crunch, very, very serious crunch. What I'm asking you and your compatriot legislators to do is make the health centers exempt from this pilot program. Change this legislation so that the health centers are not affected and that their budgets aren't cremated.
I support that, Rich, and if you send me something on that, we can make sure that we follow up. But on a broader level, Americans should not be paying more for prescription drugs than people in Japan, in Germany, and other parts of the world. I have supported the idea that Medicare negotiate for these drugs and that we should not be paying more than people, citizens in other parts of the world. And that if pharmacists is charging us more, then they should lose their monopoly patent and have generic competition. But certainly I believe that until we get to that policy, community health centers and federal health centers should not be penalized, and I'm happy to look into that. I just noticed that all 5 of the New York City Council members are here. Will you all stand up? I'm so honored because usually we go to these communities. I never get full quorum. So, let's
Hello. Hi, Congressman. We have Dan from Sunnyvale, and the topic is on presidential pardon.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, given that what's happened, especially in the last term right now, but also in previous terms, would you support or introduce a simple constitutional amendment to remove the power of the president to pardon anyone?
Absolutely.
I appreciate you saying this, because I've been saying this. I was just on MSNBC. I've been on TikTok saying, I believe we need to abolish the president's powers and power. It is a relic of the monarchy. It is abused most grossly by Donald Trump, who is pardoning heads of state who were convicted of narcotics trafficking, who is pardoning members of Congress, hoping that they will switch party. But it has been abused candidly by previous presidents of both parties. It's time that we abolish that power. And I'm looking for a Republican co-sponsor, because if I just introduce it, it's not going to get the traction. So I've asked my team, and we're looking to see if I can find a Republican to join me. I believe that really resonate across the board in this country.
Congressman Khanna, we have Jim from Fremont with a question regarding Executive Order NPSM-7.
That's a terrible thing. I appreciate you raising it.
Well, I appreciate you first and foremost. So, knowing Trump is going to exercise this regardless of rules, he and his administration and his minions will go ahead and try to push the limits on this. And the Congress, led by Republicans, are not going to step in his way. What can we do to prevent this from happening? Because if it goes forward, even this town hall could be referred to as unpatriotic.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's one of the scariest pieces of executive orders. What it does, NPSM and NPSM-7, is it says that anything that the administration views as a threat to American values, to patriotism, they have the ability to go in and arrest people and to investigate people. And so you can imagine any organization that is protesting, the No Kings rallies, the protests that take place on foreign policy. Now you have an administration with the power to say that's a threat to national security. We're going to go investigate and we're going to arrest them or dismantle those nonprofits. I'm one of the few members of Congress who've spoken out about this. One, we need to be louder as Democrats in calling out this threat to civil liberties. You want to talk about a deep state? What about this state that is hurting Americans' freedom? And we need to be going in. There are a lot of MAGA supporters who do not want a state that has that kind of power over their freedoms. And we need to start to build a coalition with some of the more libertarian-minded, civil liberty-minded Republicans to say, do you want a future Democratic president to get to decide who is a national security threat? You want a Democratic president to say, well, I disagree with your right to the Second Amendment. Suddenly, I'm going to take a view that the administrative state can go after you. It is scary. It is a threat to freedoms for all Americans. And we have to speak out about it, and we have to build a coalition against it and make this a issue about American freedom against a state that is trying to suppress it. But I appreciate you raising it, and we'll continue to speak out strongly on it.
Our next question is from Tish Hyman from LA. And I understand that there are a group of people who have a similar question. And if you do, can you please stand up? If you are with Tish Hyman. What's the question? Yeah. It's on, and the topic is on civil rights. If you are with Tish Hyman, could you please stand up? Civil rights.
Thank you very much. I'll hold it because you guys are doing a terrible job at holding the mic and y'all can't hear it. Hello, can you guys hear me? Yeah. Okay, first I'd like to say thank you for your work and dedication. I'm glad to hear that you were moved by the women's testimony in the Epstein case. You seem to care about women, but in your recent Supreme Court amicus brief, you warned that banning males from female sports and locker rooms would lead to harassment of the girls through invasive genital checks. But in the 26 states with these laws, that has never happened. Here in California, women, including myself, are being harassed by naked men in our locker rooms. In my case, the man in my locker room was a convicted domestic abuser who broke his wife's jaw so badly she needed surgery. Why issue a sensational warning about hypothetical genital checks when the real harassment of girls is happening right here under our current laws that allow men to self-ID into our spaces?
Well, I appreciate your speaking out, and I appreciate your sharing your concern about safety. I have always been concerned about safety. And that means that no matter what your gender or how you identify, you cannot harass someone in a locker room. So the problem with the example that you point out is someone was committing domestic violence or harassing, and I'll let you follow up, let me just finish. They should be prosecuted. That is unacceptable. But that has nothing to do, in my view, with someone who is trans and who identifies as a woman, saying that they can be using the locker room or bathroom which they identify with. That is their right. Now, if that person, if there's a person who is harassing or a threat, then of course they need to be prosecuted. But I will let you respond.
I truly appreciate you allowing me to respond, sir. Listen to me. Women and men are not the same. There is no such thing as a trans. There are men in dresses, and that's okay. But you cannot allow them to have civil laws. I heard you mention a couple bills you're going to go ahead and open up. You need to open up this bill and protect women, because none of the women in here are protected. It's okay. I'll get the mic back. None of the women in here are protected by law. State law is not protecting any of the women in here. And I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I am a woman who's a lesbian, who was harassed in the locker room. And I'm telling you right now that a lot of this is going on, and you need to do something about it. The Republicans will back you on it, because I hear that they've been fighting about this for a long time. It's the Democrats that need to do something about this law. The trans are not women, they are men with their pieces intact. And they're in women's prisons right now, raping and killing them. And it's going silenced. And this is going to stop with me. So please, ladies, if you're going to vote for anyone, make sure that they're standing up for women's rights, because they're not. And if you are not aware, we are unprotected. Go in a bathroom right now, there could be a man in there. He says, I'm a woman, and that's okay. Now, I know none of you think that's okay. Thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your perspective. I certainly believe in safety, and I also believe that in this country, we recognize the dignity and rights of every person to pursue happiness.
They are men. You need to stop with the malarkey. They are men. Stop making excuses for grown men going to women's restrooms. I've had it up to here. You're calmly lying and saying that it's okay. That's what you're saying. When you say that, you're saying it's okay. And I need you to say it's not okay for men to be in a women's room. There are bigger problems, yes. But this is a big problem. I don't know, no, because you're lying. You're lying. You're lying. Protect women's safety, not men who want to be women. Women. Men are not women, okay? Stop the malarkey now. You guys need to stop voting.
I appreciate it.
Y'all busy trying to be Democrats and Republicans.
I appreciate you having me say.
Use your independent brain.
We support trans women.
You're not even a woman. No,
I'm trans.
you're a child.
Get out.
You don't know who you are. You're a child.
I'm trans. I can go.
I have gender
You're not me.
You're not a boy, you're a girl. You be who you are. No, you have no rights. You're a child. And you're a parent. Yes. You're fucking castrating your own children.
All right, come on.
It's time of you. You know this.
We have obviously always respected freedom of people who disagree with me speak out, but I will not tolerate is someone insulting another person in this community. And will you stand up? The young man who was insulted, will you stand up, please? You stand up. Please stand up. Let's give this young man.
Yeah, you were
Absolutely.
You're respected in this community, and I will not tolerate any person insulting you or making you feel like you do not belong. Now, on the broader issue, of course, we have to protect violence against threatening people. We do not protect women by banning individuals from self-identifying
Men.
how they are.
Men.
This young person is
They're
not
men.
a threat. And the threat is people who are yelling and harassing and insulting folks, and that's what we need to do to protect people in this community.
We have Margaret from Hewitt asking a question about ICE protocols.
Thank you so much for your service. All the cruel and unlawful things this administration does, what hurts my heart, what hurts my heart the most. Thank you for your service. Of all the cruel and unlawful things this administration is doing, what ICE is doing hurts my heart the most. I want to know what I can do as a citizen. What am I legally allowed to do without obstructing? Can I film? Can I ask for names and ID numbers? Can I ask the name? What can I do?
They are doing is a criminal violation of the Constitution and the rights in this country. We need to require that ICE agents not be in masks. We need to require that they have body cameras so that you don't have to film them. Their police officers have body cameras. We need to make sure that they have their identification, just like this officer does. He's got identification. He doesn't have a mask. He's knows that he has rights that he follows. We need the same standards for ICE agents that we have for police officers, that we have for FBI agents. And there needs to be authority by the Justice Department to say that you can't violate people's rights. Now, what can you do? You can be there peacefully and witnessing and filming and sharing things with our office. We've had a lot of people do that. But I've got to be honest with you. This administration has been lawless. Any person who stands up, including members of Congress, in speaking out on this, are taking some risk. Are showing some courage. That's the truth in this situation. My colleague Annalena Grahova was in the vicinity of pepper spray because she went out to stand up for the rights of those who were undocumented in Arizona against ICE abuse. So this is a moment in our country that requires courage to speak up for what we see as right. And all I can say is, if you contact us and you see something, this is a high priority for us to make sure that no person's rights are violated in this country and in my district. My obligation as a representative of this district is to make sure I am standing up for the rights of every person in this community. That's how I see my job.
I'm here with Adele from Santa Clara with a question on Ukraine and Russia.
So I'm worried about the appearance of diminishing support from the administration for Ukraine versus Russia. Putin will smile at you, appear friendly and on your side while he's twisting the knife in one's back. I do not want the USA to give Ukraine to Putin, and what can be done to prevent the administration from caving to Russia and keep Ukraine protected.
Well, ma'am, you have more common sense of foreign policy than the people who are running the foreign policy. I don't understand, since when the Republicans became the Russia is good party. I don't get it. Russia invaded Ukraine. They took Ukraine's territory. I have voted every single time for aid to Ukraine that has come up in the Congress. Because I don't believe that any country has a right to march into another country, take land, and call it their own. If we allow Russia to do that, what are we going to do when Xi Jinping marches into Taiwan? What are we going to do when North Korea marches into South Korea? And the president's plan, the 28-point peace plan, I'm all for peace, I'm all for diplomacy, but they're asking Ukraine to give up more territory than Russia has even taken. They're asking them to cap the military number of troops. That is not peace, that is appeasement. That is surrender. And I am not supporting that. We need to have a just peace. And that means a negotiation to an end to the war on terms that are fair and reasonable and recognize that there was one aggressor. aggressor in this conflict, and that is Russia and Putin.
Congressman, our next question is from Salim Masani from Fremont. Well, it's not a question, it's more of a congrats and thanks.
Hi, Salim.
Hi, Congressman, the bravest congressman in the world. Bro Khanna, give him a big hand. Congressman, we really appreciate your effort. You have been a soldier for our community, a soldier for peace, for goodwill. You don't take a dime from, what are they called? The people who give tax. Yes. Congratulations. We wish you the best. Give a big hand for the Congressman Bro Khanna.
I just Salim feels like after a constituent yells at me, he needs a feel-good moment. But I appreciate what Salim's, I don't think he'll mind my sharing this. He's in his late 70s and he still does so much work for people who are unhoused and in the community. And I just love that about him and his commitment to the community. So thank you for that.
This city of Newark is now handled by the second best mayor.
In Newark, unless you've been there for 20 years, you don't count. That's doing an incredible job. And I'm not going to get into whether Navy or Hannah or Smith is like them all.
We walked in Newark. The first walk that the congressman did was in Newark when he got elected. Congratulations, Newark.
Thank you. Hi, Congressman. We have Larry from Fremont with a question for ICC.
You had said that with respect to the boat strikes in Venezuela, that the U.S. should follow international law. I think the U.S. should join the International Criminal Court.
I believe that we should be a party of international, of the ICJ, the International Criminal Court. I mean, I do believe that we need to make sure that we're standing with international law and that it's not being used in a way against American troops. But overall, I'm sympathetic to making sure we're part of these international treaties.
I'd like to follow up just a little. If U.S. troops disobey international law, they should still be prosecuted.
I agree with that. They should be prosecuted within our court-martial system, the United States system. Whether I would want to, and I think it can be negotiated in treaties to make sure that U.S. prosecution is still under court-martial and U.S. law. I don't want it to be politicized where China and Russia and other actors are prosecuting American troops. But overall, I certainly think we need to be complying with international law, with the ICJ, and with the International Criminal Court. But the issue of jurisdiction of who actually would be prosecuting the U.S. troops, if that happens, should be, in my view, in U.S. courts. But I'm happy to look into it. 9 years I've been asked this, and happy to look into the issue.
I agree completely. They should be extradited to the U.S. and any prosecution should be happening there.
So, I'm happy to look at that issue, and I appreciate you raising it.
Thank you, Congressman Khanna. We have Mike from Milpitas with a question regarding voting record.
Yeah, thank you for that opportunity. As we just recited here a few minutes ago was the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll just quote the first few lines. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America. The word I'd like to focus on is united. Right now, there just seems to be such polarization between our political parties, and that's a grave concern. I mean, as evidence in the vote for the shutdown, it was it like 3 days or so that caused hardship on a lot of Americans. And most recently, this, I guess they call it seditious six, who were describing in this video don't follow illegal orders. Well, there was no protests, back in the Biden administration when the Border Patrol was essentially, Border Patrol let these unvetted immigrants coming into our country. So there seems to be some hypocrisy here, and I guess I implore you to, it's interesting that the only real bipartisan voting that happened recently was to release the Epstein files. Why can't we draw together and become, quote, the United States of America again?
Well, I appreciate, sir, your sentiment, and I appreciate your being here, because obviously, based on your question, I infer that we may be from different political persuasions, but the fact that you are here and asking a question, I think speaks very highly of you, and you're doing it in a civil way. Let's give the gentleman a round of applause. I have always believed that the Democratic Party's answer to Trumpism should not just be to respond in kind, insult for insult, meme for meme. Fire, answer by fire leaves ashes. I want a nation that is going to move forward. I want a nation that is going to heal. I want a nation that is going to come together around a platform, what I call economic patriotism. Americans working together to build up every town from Newark to Johnstown to Orangeburg in this country, and making sure every family actually have economic success in a modern economy. That is a vision that I believe can give us a renewed national purpose to start to move forward again. I view the Epstein vote as a proof of concept of what is possible, that when you listen and work across the aisle, when you don't just hurl Twitter insults at Thomas Massey or Nancy Mace or Marjorie Taylor Greene, when you actually listen about what can be done and listen in a way that you can find areas to work together and bring this country together. My view is that this country's biggest challenge is the extremism that is tearing us apart. And my commitment, as long as this community allows me to serve, is to work towards how we heal those divides to start to bring this country together. So we may not always agree, but I always will be respectful in approaching people with a sense that patriotism ultimately is our common calling, and the divisions, we have to find a way to disagree with respect and civility.
Congressman Khanna. Our next question is from Hiranmoy Paul from the city of Santa Clara, and the topic is on fentanyl progress.
Hi, this is a message I want to bring from my daughter. She is 12 years old and a middle schooler. First of all, she wanted to thank you for your work on the Epstein files. And her next question was, she wants to contribute to solving the fentanyl issue with the government. She thinks that the government is doing a great job, but there is a lot of other things that can be done. She's a 12-year-old and she has a good feel about the situation. What are the things she can do and where she can reach out? She has an existing solution in form of an app. So she wants to reach out to the community, that is school districts. What is the exact thing she can do to help?
I'm so impressed. When I was 12 years old, I barely knew what a computer was, making an app. And I certainly wouldn't have been conscious about what we should be doing on our drug policy. So the fact that you have young people like that gives me great hope for the future of this country. I think the mayor would tell you that whether she wants to get involved locally or federally, if she wants to get involved on a federal level, if she does a paper on what her ideas are and shares them and with HIP and our team, I'm happy to look at them. We're happy to try to amplify them. I know we have a youth council. I'm sure the mayor in Newark has a lot of young people that can get involved, to get engaged. I love meeting with them. It comes to Washington or in the district, and I'm just so glad that she has an interest in public service. We need young people getting involved in politics. We need people not to think that politics and public service are corrupt professions or that there's no reason to be in public service. I grew up, my parents came here right after John F. Kennedy. I still believe what Kennedy believed. Politics is a noble calling. The public service is a noble calling. that we need young people going into that. We can make our communities and country better.
Congressman, we have Diana from New York, and she has a question about movement in Congress.
Hello, Congressman, thank you for being here. I think you addressed my question a little bit already, but I was kind of wondering if you're seeing movement in Congress with your colleagues across the aisle. Is there some kind of movement beginning to understanding also between what is lawful and unlawful, and also the understanding that when if they vote to hurt people that across the aisle from them, that they're also hurting their own constituents, and are they going to understand that there's a benefit to passing certain legislation that is also responsive to people in their own constituencies? And are they responsive at all to, because I know that their own communities, a lot of Congress people are holding the town halls and getting some pretty negative feedback, and are they responding at all to the concerns of their own constituents as opposed to loyalty to a certain, whoever's in office?
Well, that's a long checklist. There's some of them that they may be doing, but not all of them. You know, I was talking to my father on the way over here. He lives still in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, where I grew up. And he said, you know, our congressperson never has a town hall. Never has a town hall. He's a Republican in that community. So partly they're not in touch because they just shield themselves from any community interaction. But, you know, there is a crack. I never thought, I shared this with a reporter. I said, I never thought I would be sad, a bit sad, when Marjorie Taylor Greene announced her resignation. So we were working together on expanding Medicare and lowering cost of living. So there are some members of Congress who are seeing that what Trump has done is not actually helping their constituents' lives. There are more members of Congress, Don Bacon, Michael Turner, who are both Republicans, are speaking out against the unlawful attacks on Venezuela. And I'm glad, you know, I would be far more concerned if there was not Republican opposition to what ICE is doing or what is happening in Venezuela. The fact that so many Americans are speaking out reaffirms my belief that ultimately we're a decent, kind nation. We don't like lawless use of force, and more people are starting to speak up. But on your central point, which is, do they realize that cutting Medicaid and cutting SNAP benefits is hurting their own people? They don't, because the Republican ideology for years has been cut the federal government, provide tax breaks, and that's what's going to help America. And the reality is it's just wrong. The central issue in this country is not that we need to mint more trillionaires. We got $5 trillion companies in my district. The central issue in this country is that the working and the middle class can't afford life.
That's
that
right,
they can't afford the American dream. And you know who recognizes this? I don't know if he was trying to attack me or Vice President Vance. He says the three most interesting politicians of the Democratic side are Bernie Sanders, Zohran Mamdani, and Khanna. And the reason he's saying that is because whether you agree with me or not, whether you agree with Bernie or not, we are speaking about the working and middle class being shafted in a country that continues to pile up wealth in the hands of the poor. And when I was in the Democratic Party that speaks to that working class and has a vision for how they have economic security, or they're going to default to a right-wing populism, which is what Trump and Vance are offering. And that is the central issue in this country.
Thank you, Congressman Khanna. We have Jocelyn from Newark with a question regarding our education system now.
Hello. Thank you, Congressman. I want to know specifically in recent months, it's been concerning to a lot of us how the president has been attacking our education system, has been targeting our research institutions. In the United States, the universities of California are renowned for their research institutions. My generation is disillusioned and is already feeling hopelessness about the current situation of the world. I was politically aware since second grade. That's not normal. How are we people going to continue to protect our education systems and protect our freedom to learn and have knowledge? Because that is how we can actually protect our future.
Wow, very eloquent. I think it's in the running for something, no? But But look, I think we need more young people, more people speaking out about education, about science. You know, I was so proud of California. We got 5 Nobel laureates in the UC system this time, 5. And that's because California's invested in higher education. It's because the investments the federal government has made in higher education. For this administration to be taking away fundamental investments in science and research and health is handcuffing us from what built America's economy, what built the working and middle class. You know, I was most offended on education. Do we have any nurses in the audience? Stand up if you're a nurse. Let's give it a round of applause. I might be a little biased, but I think that teachers and nurses are 2 of the most important professions in our country. By the way, also the ones that AI is not going to take. You can't, and the administration had this rule in the Department of Education where they declassified nurses from being professionals.
That's insane.
They say the nurses were not professionals, and so nurses cannot go get the same amount of loans for graduate education as a lawyer or as a doctor or as other professions can. Anyone who has been to a hospital or a doctor's office knows that nurses are professionals. And the assault on education and on professions from this administration is frankly insulting. I was so insulted by what the Department of Education has done in declassifying nurses, and I'm working to restore the classification for nurses as professionals.
Congressman Khanna, our next question is from Richard Bowen from Newark on the topic of gerrymandering.
Thank you. Thank you, Rokana, for keeping New York on your schedule. Very happy you're here today. I'm a 10-year resident in New York and very glad to hear from you. And I'm hoping that you will be keeping your seat when the redistricting happens in light of what happened this year. I want to thank you for being a leader in terms of reaching across the aisle in the political vernacular. You said a lot about that today, and you've also given a lot of respect to people in the audience who may not share your point of view, which I think is great. You know, a lot is achieved politically in the middle ground in this country, and I think a lot is achieved when there's a contest of ideas, both sides of the political spectrum being able to argue those ideas out in election campaigns. And political gerrymandering I see as, frankly, the Constitution's weakest link, and we've seen multiple states, including now California, try to redistrict in a way that ultimately keeps particular political interests to the fore. I wonder if you can express your views for us on that today. I don't know if the Congress could actually do anything on a national scale to make uniform the way districts are drawn and to prohibit the type of gerrymandering we see in Texas and other states, but I'd like to hear your views. Thank you.
I appreciate that, very eloquently said. You know, people often get confused because I identify as a bold progressive Democrat who's for Medicare for all and taxing billionaires and for free public college and for a $10 a day childcare. And yet they say, well, how is this then working across the aisle? Because I said, just because you have certain convictions doesn't mean that you have to believe you have a monopoly on the truth, or that you can't treat people on the other side with respect, or you can't have dialogue, or you can't find common ground. We need more people in our politics who are willing to engage honestly and openly with people on the other side to try to find common ground, to listen to people genuinely, and to try to find a way forward in this country. You don't have to compromise your ideals to do that. You have to have the temperament to put this country first and listen to people who may disagree with you. So I appreciate your sharing that insight. I've always been for independent redistricting across the states. HR 1, when the Democrats were in power, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act would have done that nationally. We passed that in the House. We couldn't get 51 senators to pass it, and we couldn't do it in a way that would have overcome the filibuster. But that is the real answer. You know, I supported Prop 50, but not out of enthusiasm. I just thought if Texas did it, then we had to have some response, or we would have basically allowed the Republicans to gerrymander their way into a majority when they don't have popular support. I mean, look how desperate Trump is. He's pardoning Democratic members of Congress in Texas, hoping that they flip so that he can keep a majority. this is what we're up against, with Representative Cuellar. But I don't think that Prop 50 was it was necessary. I supported it, but I don't think it's some great moral stride. What we really need to have in the future is independent redistricting, not just in California, but across the country, and federal legislation that does that when we get back in power.
Congressman, we have Ray from Milpitas, and his topic is on nuclear regulatory commission.
Congressman Khanna, thank you for all you're doing. I am an activist working to solve climate change, and I have a request for your support on something that President Trump is trying to do. He's trying to get rid of the junk science and politically based safety regulations for nuclear energy. And back at the start of the nuclear energy age, the U.S. built many nuclear reactors that have been supplying a lot of our clean, safe energy. And then the Nuclear Regulatory Commission put in regulations saying that no level of radiation is safe, which is ridiculous because, you can't eat a banana without eating something that's radioactive. So would you support Donald Trump in getting rid of junk science, politically based safety, quote unquote, safety regulations with the NRC?
Always make me nervous when you start with you support Donald Trump, but I have, when he's right, supported things. For example, when he had the executive order to lower prescription drugs by making sure pharma wouldn't charge more to Americans than people outside America. And I do believe in nuclear energy, and I do believe that some of the regulatory frameworks have been too restrictive in terms of developing both nuclear energy and smart modular reactors. And France is 80% nuclear energy. We need to have nuclear energy be part of the bucket of solutions for energy. And so I'll have to study exactly what he's offering, but if the question is, do I support building more nuclear energy in the United States and smart modular reactors and making sure that we can have reform in the regulatory environment to do that, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you, Congressman Khanna. We have Steve from Fremont with a question regarding bipartisanship.
Or not thereof. My question is kind of more of an observation over the last year. So it seems as though since Trump's come into office, the Democrats have gone into this resistance mode, right? And it doesn't matter what the issue is. Even the ones that are 80-20 in the polls, such as a secure border and all that kind of stuff. The Democrats seem to be against it. If he's trying to get out illegal alien gangbangers, we got congressmen going down to El Salvador to check on them on the Democratic side, right? And the lady brought up this whole thing about men and women's bathrooms, that whole discussion there. That's another one where it just seems like the Democrats constantly, whatever side Trump takes on something, whatever it is, they take the opposite side. It doesn't even matter if the polls agree with him or it's good for the country, whatever the case may be. And I'm just wondering, is this what we should expect for the next 3 years?
Well, I appreciate the point. There are times that I have supported what Trump's position was. I introduced his legislation on the executive order for pharmaceuticals. He had an executive order that said that big pharma should not charge Americans a higher price than they charge people in France and Great Britain and Canada. I introduced that exact executive order as a bill in the Congress view of bringing the prices down. When Donald Trump ordered the release of the hostages from Gaza and got Netanyahu to stop on the bombing, I said that I appreciate the president and what he was able to do there, even though I have significant disagreements and problems with his handling of some of that. I was clear that there he deserved appreciation for securing the release of the hostages. I certainly appreciate bill. You didn't invite me for a bill signing.
Aw.
But, you know, I've had 4 or 5 bills signed by the president in his first term and his second term. So I view it as issues, but the problem has been, why is it that the Democrats have gone into this sense of resistance? It's because the president has been acting in certain ways in defiance of the Constitution. You can't just be president of the United States and have family members say, okay, I'm going to take money from UAE for cryptocurrency. You can't be president of the United States and say Congress can appropriate something, but I don't have to spend it. You can't be president of the United States and say, I'm going to fire the FTC chair because I don't like the FTC chair. So what has caused the sense of resistance is the president's clear overreach on the Constitution. And what we have to balance, in my view, and I'll let you respond, what we have to balance, in my view, is finding areas which are good for the country to find common sense. By the way, I proposed that on immigration. The president said, I'm open to having a path to legalization for farm workers, for agriculture workers, for hospitality workers. Probably all these people in his business world said, we need these workers. I said, okay, let's do a bill on that. Let's do a bill where we get legalization for people in these industries. So if there are common sense, I'm all for work, violate the Constitution and not do everything in my power to speak out. That's not standing up to Donald Trump. That's standing up for our Constitution. It's a 75% Democratic district, so, you know, you don't have to be intimidated by the applause. If you have a response, I'm happy to listen.
I appreciate the comments you made about how you sided with Trump and this or that. But what I see on TV anyway, which is not getting a straight story, what I see is not that. I see people like Hakeem Jeffries and all of these just constant resistance with everything that he does is bad, and many things are bad. I'm not arguing them. I'm not necessarily a Trump fan. I'm just saying that what I want as a constituent is for you guys to work together to get stuff done, not to say, well, if he wants that, we don't want it, because that's what it seems like to me. Now, you just said that it's, you know, you've agreed with him on certain things, and so apparently there is some of that going on. All I know is what I see on TV and read, you know, on the internet or whatever, because that's the way most people get their news.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and you know, the request that you follow me. I go on Fox News as well, and you know, I'm on all the podcasts. But I would say this, as a matter of the Democratic Party, look, we have to, in my view, certainly stand up to Donald Trump in fighting where he's unconstitutional. But if we're a Democratic Party to win back the majority, for us to win back the confidence of the country, I do not believe, like some in my party, that the answer is to match insult with insult, that the answer, if the Republicans want to own the libs, is for us to have a view that we want to own MAGA. I believe this country is exhausted. We are embarrassed. We are tired of the division. We seek a new generation that is going to offer a way forward, that is going to be solution-oriented, that is going to seek to inspire and not insult, and that's certainly the type of leadership I believe this district expects. Leadership I hope to provide.
The congressman's on a tight schedule, so we're going to have time for one more question for each. Thank you.
Our next question is from Ruby Cam from Menlo Park on the topic of AI regulation.
Hi, Congressman Khanna. Thank you so much for doing this. It's really great to see, you know, our federal government really reaching out and making sure that the voices of constituents are heard. My question, you know, I work in tech. I spent the last 10 years at Google. I'm scared of AI. I'm sure I'm not the only one in the room who's going to admit my future job prospects. I'm scared for my kids. You know, what do you think is the federal government's role in regulating AI? You know, you hear this analogy about AI and the Industrial Revolution, and we all studied history. We know huge technological progress, economic, social, political. How much do we stay ahead of those trends and make sure that we're addressing them as opposed to reacting to the negative externalities?
Well, that's very thoughtful. I'd love that you give your card to him to follow up, because I'm working very much on AI and how we deal with AI. By the way, as a show of hands, and please be honest, that just helps me get a beer. Get a bearing. How many people think AI is a top 5 issue for our community? Top 3? No, so it's a big issue. It's a big issue in this district and in this country. It's going to continue to be a big issue. You mentioned the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution was great in retrospect, but for 60 years, it crushed the working class. People had horrible working conditions. It automated jobs. We've forgotten that part of the Industrial Revolution. We don't want to have an AI revolution where you have 4 million drivers, commercial drivers, out of a job overnight. We don't want to have a situation where young people with college degrees can't get a job or trade degrees. You know, I was saying to someone, I was at NBC Newsroom, someone was telling me that they told a college graduate, you're not going to become, there's no jobs in news, go become an electrician. It said, that reminds me of when we told the steel workers to go become coders. You know, the anxiety with the blue collar workers is with white collar workers. So I have a New York Times op-ed coming out. I'd love to send it to everyone, get your feedback. Where I called for an AI New Deal, an AI jobs New Deal. What does this mean? Let's make sure we have sensible regulation on safety to protect jobs so that technology is used to enhance workers, not to eliminate workers. Second, let's make sure that we have a bargaining with employees so that they are able to bargain for new roles at a firm or productivity gains, and all the gains are not just going to the shareholders and to the capital class. Third, let's have a tax code that incentivizes hiring people who currently have accelerated depreciation, which is incentivizing hiring software. And fourth, let's have the government actually hire some of these young people or people who are being displaced. We can put them to work in Hanlon City, you know, help build roads, help build parks, help do mental health services, help do child care, or we can put them in work in the federal government to help AI or emerging technology or national security. But we need to have a government that understands you can't have someone graduate with a trade, graduate with college, be unemployed for 4 years and think that they're going to have a healthy future. We need the federal government to be able to either put them in an apprentice or a job in their community or a job in the federal government. I believe we need a full AI jobs plan in this country and guardrails in this country for the AI revolution.
Congressman, we have Cindy from Portola Valley, and she has a question about local government control.
I want to say thank you and have great respect for everything you've done, and really thank you so much. Are you aware of efforts both at the level of the FCC and also Republican legislators to remove essentially all local government control in placement of cell towers, and also that includes AI? This will be in the form of Bill 2289, it's HR Bill 2289, and 7 other bills that are going to the House now from the Senate Commerce Committee, and it's from Republicans. The U.S. Conference of Mayors and the National League of Cities oppose this as federal overreach, as it will violate the federal obligations of local governments to provide public safety, such as identifying utilities, gas and water lines before placement of fiber optic and cell towers. The late Senator Feinstein and Representative Anna Eshoo supported local government control and the placement of cell towers in their proposed bills in 2012. Can you work across the aisle with Republicans to prevent this legislation from moving forward?
Yes, it's horrible, the legislation. First of all, take away that they want a moratorium on legislation to regulate AI or cell towers. Who has a bill, whatever the industry saying, New York City Council should not be able to, or the state should not be able to make any law regarding safety or regarding jobs on a particular topic? It is gross federal overreach. And when I talked to my Republican colleagues, I said, what happened to federalism? What happened to local control? Why would you want to strip city councils and county commissions and state government of being able, who are closest to the people, of being able to have sensible regulations of these issues. And by the way, that's the only way we're going to get good federal legislation. Often bubbles up from cities and states that then can become the standard. So I will continue to work to oppose these kind of moratoriums or this sensible regulation on cell towers or AI.
Thank you, Congressman Khanna. Our last question for today will be by Ian from Cupertino with a question regarding mental health.
Thank you for taking my question. My name is Igma. I live in Cupertino. I came to this country when I was 22 years old. 40 years here. Okay. Today's question that I have or issue is related to mental health in our society. I will give you a story, a real story, and then I will ask you for questions or suggestions. That's the purpose of the video. The story is that I have a son. His name is Alberto. He is 21 years old. He was a student, a third-year student, major in economics. Okay. He was arrested by Dublin Police Department on September 15th this year due to his mental health issue. He was yelling at a mall. So now he had two criminal charge. One is for disturbing in the public. Second one is he posts something on the internet that becomes a hate crime. From September 15th to now, about 10 weeks, I pushed myself into a criminal lawyer's type in regards to mental health. He was housed in Dublin jail, county jail, Santa Rita jail. I just came from there this morning. He was there in more than 2 weeks, 2 months, okay? Because he's in mental health, the jail does not have sufficient treatment, and he was determined to be incapable to stand for trial on October 29th. From there, he's waiting on the wait list to state hospital for treatment. Okay, that's the normal legal proceedings. By now, he's completely deteriorated. Let me describe to you his condition today. He's dripping and cannot walk, cannot speak. I asked him if he can eat. He said he cannot swallow. He cannot drink either. He fainted in front of our eyes when we have a face-to-face visit with him. Emergency was called and he's taken down somewhere. I do not know. So I have a private lawyer hired. All he can do is go through the normal proceedings with the court. But the thing is that Elton is waiting on the wait list to be treated. But I can see him withering in front of my eyes. I do not even know that I can rescue him alive from this jail. For background, Santa Rita jail is the jail with the highest death rate in California state. For now, my question is, anyone can give me a solution or suggestion where I can go to rescue him? I called governor's office, I called California General Attorney's office. Okay, I also filed a grievance to Alameda County DA office. I did receive callback from the grievance office. Guess what? They told me that they made an investigation. The jail and the hospital treating Elton affiliated with the jail does violate Elton's civil rights. because they denied his visit by family members during those times. However, the grievance office has no right to enforce the correction. All they can do is writing a letter to the hospital or to the jail to let them know that this is a problem. So for me, as a citizen, regular person, living in this Silicon Valley of the United States, the richest county in the United States, where I should go to rescue my son, I have only one child. Thank you.
Well, first of all, my heart goes out to you, and let's show her our love for what she's going through. And I can't even, as a father, as a parent, as someone who still is blessed to have my parents, I understand or can't even begin to understand the heartache that both of you are going through. To have a son who was, seemed everything was fine and at Berkeley, and now having this incredible issue. I will say this, where is Simone on my team? Simone, if you can go, and Simone is a miracle worker on casework. We'll see what she can do. I will tell her to make it our highest priority in terms of making some phone calls and seeing if we can get your son the medical attention that he needs. And, certainly we will do what we can. I can't make a promise because there are times we try and we're ineffective. There are times we try and we are able to help. But we will do whatever we can to make sure that he's getting any help that he can. But I think is the fact of how we treat mental health in this country. How we need to do a better job even in our schools to identify those issues, to be able to provide the counseling and resources, how we need to destigmatize mental health issues, how we need to have the resources so that people can get mental health treatment right away, so they don't have to be on a wait list to see that deterioration. And your story gives me more of a spirit to want to fight for those resources. Our country has not invested in mental health in the way it should. And we have to be willing to make that investment from schools on so that the situation isn't as dire as what your son is facing. And I appreciate your courage for speaking out. Let me end on this point. I think that this is such a challenging time for the country. Such a challenging time for our communities. We saw anger even in the questions here. We've had so many of these town halls. We rarely have interruptions where we need law enforcement officers to get involved. For the first time, members of Congress are fearing for their own safety with the type of violence that we've seen erupt around the country. And that's not just true about members of Congress, but anyone who's politically active or in public life. We have to turn around from the abyss that we're headed to as a nation. People talked about American competitiveness and how we're going to stay ahead in AI and technology. That is not the central issue facing us. The central issue facing us is how we're going to stop the spiral into extremism, to start to learn how to talk to each other again, to build a sense of citizenship again, to build a sense of a common national purpose again, and to remember what we have in common as Americans. To the extent that I have any impact in my time and remaining time in public service, that is the highest priority for me. Taking inspiration from what Lincoln saw as his highest priority, to care about the Union. We need politicians dedicated to the project of building the American Union again. Thank you for